In 1721, the world was a collection of distant outposts, separated by months of ocean travel, but linked by a desperate, shared need for information. For the citizens of Philadelphia, that information arrived in the March 16th edition of the American Weekly Mercury. Within this single sheet, reports from the imperial courts of London and Paris are printed alongside missionary accounts from the Far East. These weren't just stories to be read. They were a catalog of the massive, often violent forces moving across the globe, forces that readers knew would eventually reach their own shores. The lead dispatch comes from Roman missionaries in China, detailing an earthquake in the province of Zhenfi that shattered the regional landscape. In Yangning, the destruction was absolute. The earth opened and the town was swallowed whole. Further north, the ground rose in waves, burying the public granaries in seconds. Turning to Europe, France was dominated by the plague in Marseille, leaving trade quite ruined. Meanwhile, in Paris, the Sieur de Presse was murdered exactly where his predecessor was killed 1 year earlier. By the time a colonial reader finished the first page, they were left with a harrowing picture of the world, one where nature was unpredictable, disease was unchecked, and high society faced sudden violence. While much of the news focused on physical survival, the updates from London tracked a different kind of volatility, the massive financial shifts caused by the South Sea Company. This chart shows the rapid, vertical spike in value known as the South Sea Bubble. It was a period of intense speculation that created immense wealth for a few, seemingly out of thin air. Singer Mrs. Barbier gained over £5,000 from South Sea stock, retiring from the stage forever. Right above, the paper notes Lord Powys rejected a high-paying rental offer for his land, keeping his famous healing wells free for public use. By printing these stories together, the Mercury gave its readers a way to weigh the sudden private fortunes of the era against the continued necessity of public charity. For those living in the colonies, however, the most urgent news didn't come from the banks of London, but from the merchant ships arriving from the West Indies. A dispatch out of Philadelphia warns of Captain Edwards, a pirate whose fleet was causing incredible damage to international shipping routes. Edwards operated with a massive tactical advantage. His ship was mounted with 30 carriage guns and 18 swivel guns, manned by a crew of 250 men, far more than any standard merchant vessel could withstand. The paper details his tactics, capturing Captain Norton's brigantine, keeping the better ship, and forcing Norton into an inferior vessel. Yet, the same column reports John Owen successfully saved a sinking ship near Bermuda, preserving its crew and cargo. Because the colonies relied on these ships for almost every manufactured good and trade connection, these updates provided the essential data needed to manage the risks of the Atlantic trade. After surveying the chaos of the high seas and distant continents, the Mercury finally turns its focus to the internal administration of New York and Philadelphia. From New York comes the obituary of the Honorable Caleb Heathcote, whose life was defined by numerous roles in colonial government. The text lists his titles: Surveyor General, Judge of the Admiralty, and Council Member, noting he was busy organizing charitable subscriptions. In a world that often felt unstable, these accounts of civil servants served as a reminder that local order and institutions were still being maintained. Even in 1721, media answered for mistakes. Publisher Andrew Bradford prints a formal apology for gross errors in transcribing a speech by the governor of New York. He explicitly notes the typos were a careless clerk's fault and not to be charged on the printer. It's a reminder that this entire global news network rested on a massive physical effort. Every word on these pages had to be manually set in lead and pressed onto paper by hand. From the destruction of cities in China to the errors of a local clerk, the Mercury shows that the human desire to document and understand the world around us is an entirely timeless pursuit.
The Daily Dispatch, history in print.